Good morning. Hope everybody is doing well. We're now coming to the end of week 3 of our consecration to St. Joseph, so it's my turn to check back in with you guys today. Um, it's a beautiful devotion, beautiful time reading the book. Heard a lot of positive feedback, a lot of people experiencing some of the joys of getting to know Joseph better. I know that I'm definitely experiencing that. Um, it's been beautiful to get to know the Father of Christ in a little bit more intimate and beautiful way. Um, just wanted to share a couple thoughts this morning. At least what I've noticed in sort of broad general tones this last week is the everydayness of Joseph's life. Well, of course, there were moments of high points and um, craziness that, of course, ends up in the Bible of having to flee with Mary and Jesus. There's a lot of his life that's just being a father and a husband. I try to emphasize this when we talk about Mary's life fairly often, just because we think when we look at the lives of the saints, if we don't live these heroic lives, these lives that are completely different than everybody else, that we're not living like the saints. But we oftentimes are. And Mary and Joseph are some of the most beautiful examples because their child, of course, was God, divine person. But other than that, they're just a small family. They, of course, are going to have those unique moments that speak to Jesus' divinity, speak to who he is in the Father's grand scheme of saving us, of giving us the opportunity to heaven. But a vast majority of their life is just being a husband and wife, and doing it in a very beautiful and heroic way. But they work out their salvation, they cooperate with God's plan in the household, in their jobs. We don't want to underestimate that role in our own life. So a lot of what we've talked about this week are wrestling with that, with their marriage, with their home. I do want to say just briefly that these are hypotheses that he's proposing out there, and there is good tradition there. But know there's always more than one school of thought, and if the church hasn't definitively said something, it's good to wrestle with all of them. For instance, somebody asked me after Mass this last week, in which school of camp do I fall into? Is Joseph a young guy or an old guy? And I had heard both arguments in college, and I had fallen into the older camp, and I quickly became persuaded this last year reading another book on Joseph that he was probably a younger guy. Fall back into that school of thinking. But if the church were to come out tomorrow and say that he was an older guy, I'd have no problem with it. And so we have to realize that there's both schools of camp, and we want to wrestle with what beauty both of them bring. And all the different ideas that we have. So I just want to say that as you're going through this and reflecting back on it, if the church hasn't definitively said something, then all of them are valid, and all of them can speak to different things that we can take from Joseph, because none of us are going to know the answer completely well. We don't know when Joseph quit being a part of Mary and Jesus' life. It was sometime after he was found in the temple, and sometime before he begins his public ministry. It seems to be, and we're not even 100% sure of that. There's some scholars that debate different things. And what I think this week has given us is the opportunity to wrestle with those realities, with these different parts of his life, and trying to put him in these scenes of seeing how he would have responded, and what we know definitively, and then what we can, in a very healthy way, speculate, guess, and wrestle with, and hopefully let the Holy Spirit speak to us so that we can learn from those moments. But we want to stay faithful, stay open, allow God to do his work. We also have seen some of the virtues, some of the gifts that are given to him, that are attributed to him. I may or may not be a day behind or so, and that's okay. People have asked, is that okay if I fall behind? Yeah, it is. Do your best to catch up, and if you end up a couple days behind at Consecration Day, that's fine. The goal is to get us ready, and we'll do the best that we can. So if you're there and you're struggling, stick with it. But we've seen how he's the most of different things, most chaste, most just, most humble, most everything, because of his specific role in our salvation history. And of course, he becomes a great model for us, a great example for us, especially for men. There have been talks quite a bit about how it's believed that Joseph is given this primary focus this year as a way of trying to remind men of the role that they need to play, because masculinity is very much under attack in the world. We're trying to get rid of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a father, and most of our problems studies are showing can go back to fathers not being fathers or fathers not being present. And I think Joseph is giving us this opportunity to work on growing in these virtues in our own lives. We want to take advantage of that. We want to hold on to that in our own life. And so I think there's a lot of beautiful things to reflect on, to look at from different angles, and to see where it applies in our own life. And then one last thing on the intellectual side of things, because as you know, my heart is very much in our intellectual formation, always telling people to read good books, listen to good talks, listen to good speakers and podcasts, and make sure we're entering into the faith as well-roundedly as we can. Some of these supplemental readings in the back of the book, as people say, are very long. Some of them are things that draw us in beautifully. Some of them don't. And what I'm trying to point out to the people who have asked me questions about this is there are different ways of writing, different styles. Some people are short, pithy, to the point. Some people ramble on, maybe like you're thinking I'm doing this morning, at least morning for me. Find styles that work for you. This is a chance to get to know different writing styles in the church. It also helps us learn. One of the tools I had to learn in seminaries on some of the long readings that didn't speak to me directly is how to skim read them for any maybe good nuggets that are in there for me, but maybe it's a chapter that doesn't speak as much to me, and that's okay. It's not maybe an area where God's trying to reveal something magnificent to me, but we still want to try to take some of the goodness from it. And then when we hit a day or a chapter that really speaks to us, then we sit with it a little bit more slowly. We chew on it a little bit longer, take from it all the goodness that God can reveal to us. And that's okay. I mostly want to affirm people, that's fine. God's going to work with us all in different ways. He's going to reveal different things to us. He's going to speak to us in different volumes on different days. That's okay. I'm in a different place than the rest of you. You're all in a different place from each other. That's fine. So again, beautiful things to reflect on. Sit with them. Let Joseph be with you, guide you, pray for you this week, and let the Holy Spirit do something beautiful in each one of our lives. Have a good day, persevere, and God bless.